Hi everyone, welcome back. It's myself and Jonathan. We're here now for part two of the interview. Thanks for the massive response we've had so far. We've had some really good comments coming back and some good feedback. So, kind of picking up from last night, if we can kind of cast his mind back to the failed inspection, and then obviously you throwing your hat in the ring for the DFE funded forum. Do you want to kind of talk us through? The inception of the forum and how it all began.
Yeah, I think if you look, you could go back further than the failed inspection because the failed inspection actually highlighted the lack of parent voice. So from the
Yeah,
years going back to about 2016, really, since the forum collapsed, the original forum collapsed, you did have, I think, you and I were chatting just earlier about this can't say the word, jostling nature of people wanting the forum, but wanting it for different reasons and
yeah, kind of like
for
a Game of
different,
Thrones.
yeah,
Yeah,
Game
the
of
Game of
Thrones,
Thrones of the
yeah.
Sen world. Yeah, yeah,
And God only knows what character I would be. I'm sure people will fill them gaps in. But I think the key thing is that it was always about me, for me being pure. It just had to be pure. It had to be genuine parent voice. And if that were uncomfortable, what were being said, then whoever were involved with it had to deal with it. And
yeah, yeah,
things don't change inside echo chambers. So if you need critical friendship. So an echo chamber is just a place where you say something and everybody echoes what you agree with, and it's all nice and fluffy. And you have a meeting, you invite a service in, and oh, we got on really well and all that. And it's like, well, that's not a reflection of the system. It's not about people feeling unsafe. It's not about people feeling like they're scared or anything like that. It's
yeah,
about understanding the problems and issues that parents are having and why you end up in an adversarial
yeah,
situation at that sort of individual participation level. So you've got to be able to go in and work with services and for it to be on some level confrontational
yeah.
because it's
Well,
a check and
this
balance.
is the yeah, absolutely. I think this is a critical factor. I hear it quite a lot where we see some posts saying, "Well, why don't we all come together? Let's not be divided." And but I think it's really important to know that people have different experience of the SEND system. Some are good, some are bad, yeah, some are terrible. And if we're not listening to all them different kind of experiences, we're never going to be able to shape that platform to kind of get the services in line to what we're wanting. If it's all kind of just yes, and we're having a great time. Unfortunately, that's not challenging. We all know challenge creates change.
Yeah, we do. And so what you had is you had that culture where I've always tried the best I can possibly try to not blame parents or
Yeah,
not look at parents as the people that are causing the problems. I think if you're in a situation where your most important person in your life, your child, is
yeah,
vulnerable,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and the very services that are carrying the title as saying that they will look after your child don't look after your child. Yeah. Um, then you're gonna feel levels of vulnerability that most of society won't feel. And what
mm,
that does is when you're in a difficult situation and you're vulnerable, you start doing things that you might not necessarily have done in a normal capacity, in a usual capacity. So I understand that behaviors sometimes of individuals when they're desperate can be sometimes not ideal. So, but being an idealist as I am, I look at it and I think, well, we can't focus on ourselves. We have to look at the collective. Even if we don't agree, we have to
yeah,
not agree in a governance way.
yes,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
because if there are gaps and you are willing to tread on someone else, then in some respects that just destroys any strategic voice, any organizational voice, and any independent voice because fundamentally services know that they can always get a small amount of people to say the right things at the right time.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not what you
yeah,
need. We're not empowered then. So from my perspective, it weren't just about recreating a forum, Parent Voice from 2016, with the people that I knew and cared for. I've had involvement with some wonderful, wonderful same parents. It was about creating it right, getting it right, and making sure that it were built on the right foundations and not built on sand. And that takes time. And
yeah.
and,
Oh,
and
yeah,
a lot of people don't want to put that time in and that effort. So what we had for the best part of 4 or 5 years, including a 2 year period when Barnsley Council paid for a company to come in called Kids to set up a forum. That was to the tune of the commissioning amount was to the tune of 198 grand between 2018 and 2020. And that failed. And a lot of that were because they were trying to create a forum that were quite old-fashioned and archaic. And again, it's centered around this people believing that they were representational of parents rather than presenting what parents are. So again, you find yourself, you challenge it, you fight it, you whatever word you want to use. And by the time we got to the area inspection, there were no forum. There were just no forum. And parent voice were minuscule. And what happened, James, is it wasn't about direct, posters above your head outside town hall campaigning. What it actually was is, and I know this for a fact because I was told by the executive director at the time when I was in the position of chair, it were the Ofsted surveys. So what happened is we had a group of parents who were absolutely phenomenal. One particular parent, who I won't name, but she were amazing. And what she did is she just basically went to all the people that are usually not can be ignored, and she asked them to fill in the surveys, the really vulnerable people. And what
yeah.
we saw in the survey is what the local authority saw, but most importantly, what Ofsted saw and CQC is Barnsley Council and the then CIC, ICB, but what it used to be called. They had one perception of what they were doing, and then parents just completely contradicted it. So the importance of the Ofsted survey that goes out to parents cannot be undervalued in any way, and that will come again when the new inspection comes. But that is
Right.
what made the difference. It made the difference.
Yeah. Do you think that will be reflective when these surveys go out? Bearing in mind where we sit now with the consortium, or do you
Well,
think we're going to
you
get
know
a
what? You know what I would say is this. If I was wanting a survey done about me to find out about any organization I were involved with, and I wanted to find out genuine data, I would want them people to be supported in filling it in who need support by
yeah,
independent people or by people who are like them, not people from my organization. So what
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying
yeah,
to say there in
absolutely.
the nicest possible way is if a member of staff or a council in place is like, oh, I'll fill that survey and I'll do that, I wouldn't advise that. Okay, if you're struggling to fill in the Ofsted survey, which is not that difficult, but I understand it can still happen, contact another parent. Speak to a parent who tells you the truth, a parent who says it how it is, or a page like yourself or like me, a group like us, and just say what it is you want to say in that survey and make sure it represents what you want to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so important because that then led to the local authority throwing their hands up and saying, okay, we need a forum. Now, I must caveat my beginning in before the forum by saying that this jostling that you correctly referred to when we were talking earlier, it led to people making false allegations about me
Right.
as a person.
Yeah. And that was proven. That was proven to be false as well.
Yeah, well, there were an investigation. So
Right.
and I've got messages I've got emails. And it was an allegation was made against me prior to the area inspection that I'd sent death threats. Anybody who knows
Right.
me,
Okay.
you'd laugh out loud if it weren't serious, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I didn't know at the time is I didn't know it had been investigated. But
Right.
I obviously once I found out that them threats had been made, and then I was then made or allowed, if you like, to become the chair, it was clear that I'd been investigated because
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
investigated it, they'd effectively been handing over the position of chair
Well, it's not, I
to
mean, to be fair, death threats, Jonathan. Let's be fair. That's a criminal matter, isn't it? You know, what I mean, threats to life and intimidation is a criminal matter. I think you would have been having some knocks on the door.
yeah, and the fact is that it depends. I can't be bothered to be overly passionate in defending myself because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
ludicrous,
Yeah.
if you get what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
I can't
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
can't fake how stupid it is by, changing who I am. It's just ridiculous beyond words. So in the time, James, that I've been involved with the forum and previous to it, I've been accused of sending death threats. I've been accused of being an alcoholic. I've been accused of phoning parents and heavy breathing down the phone.
Right. Okay.
I've been accused of having affairs with members of staff. I've been accused of being a sociopath and
Right.
having serious mental health issues. People
Yeah.
have diagnosed me as autistic. People have diagnosed me as ADHD. People have said that I've had PDA.
Yeah.
No one knows
Well,
me.
like myself, you're a horrible, scary man. Yeah.
Well, the worrying thing is, James, is that it is misandrist behaviour.
Yes.
There's no
Yes.
doubt
Yes.
in my mind. Misogyny is absolutely rife in this country, in this world. It's a shocking thing. And as a father to a daughter and a son to a mother, I I find misogyny abhorrent. But what we are seeing is a rise in misandrist behaviour, be it the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
as
Absolutely.
misogyny
Yeah.
towards men. And men do speak differently. Men do have deeper voices. Men do have a tendency to use the voice more, and people are misinterpreting that. And it's not fair. People are accusing me of attacking them. Back when it's this level of threat. I never see this terminology being used
Yeah.
where a woman's attacking a woman. Now, I don't want to get into gender-based stuff, but what I know is that there's some of the stuff that's come my way is simply because I'm 6'4", 17 and a half, 18 stone man,
Yeah.
and I'm a
Yeah.
big
Yeah. Yeah.
presence. And don't get me wrong, I get things wrong, but the level of things that have been said about me, and let's be straight here, I could do things with that. I've got more documents. I've got people who've done this in emails. I've got their emails. I've got things that have been sent to me. I've got videos that have said the slated me. I mean, you've
Yeah.
released
Yeah.
information where I am being talked about as if
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
caused a parent to or parents to potentially commit suicide. What I don't think people realize how much that weighs on me as a human being. Because I'm not willing to come online or write something that's emotional porn, as far as I see it.
Yeah.
People don't know who I am. They don't know the anxieties I carry. They don't know the background in my life. And we all have a presentation of who we are, but it has a absolutely shockingly profound effect on you.
I think this is the thing. What hit me when obviously, when you kind of gave me. I mean, we'd never spoke before. We've never kind of, up to that point of you, give me that audio recording, that telephone call. And I was sat there listening to this woman kind of saying all these things. And I think to myself, you've never stood in your kitchen with your 17-year-old son who's confessing to wanting to commit suicide because he feels he's worthless. You know what I mean? You've never had to deal with your 10-year-old son at primary school who they found kind of hanging himself off a coat hanger with a plastic bag over his head. Because, people don't understand that the reason why we're trying to change and we're trying to challenge is because we've gone through the mill. You know what I mean? We're seeing our children in pain, and then you get these ridiculous attacks at you. these ridiculous allegations, and again, if people, I think what fantastically, a number of our parents came forward, obviously, when we released that audio recording, when I was accused of being a big, scary man, um, and kind of stood up. The people we work with, all I want is the best outcomes for children. I'm not doing this for giggles. You know what I mean? I'm not doing this because I could. There's a lot more things I could be doing with my time. But if we don't challenge what's going off at the moment and be prepared to stick his head above that parapet, I mean, I've got broad shoulders, mate. I mean, I've shown you early on. I've just had a text message from South Yorkshire Police. Some police officer wants to have a conversation about me for whatever. I can make assumptions, and I'll not know that until Tuesday. But um, I feel just. This is just. You know what I mean? Until we get to the point where children are not feeling the way they're feeling, they're not facing that emotional abuse or that trauma. I'll carry on going. I don't care what anybody says. I'll keep going. And if they want to lock me up, I'll do it while I'm in prison. You know what I mean? If whatever they want to do, you know what I mean? I'm going to carry on. I'll carry on and I'll carry on and I'll carry on. But some of these little sniper remarks, um, they're intentional, and they're not intentional because they're trying to because they know you personally and they're trying to assassinate your character. They're agenda driven. They have an agenda behind them, and that's the scary thing for me. I don't
I
know. I
think
don't know how you feel.
I'll tell you why how I feel is that I I think I have conversations with a lot of parents and some of those sometimes are difficult, you know, and I am very much I understand that I can be hard work, you know, I understand that, but the reason why I know that I'm hard work is that I really believe in rights and responsibilities. And
Yeah,
that for
yeah,
me is the key, it's the key aspect to it all. We all know when we should have done a job and we didn't do it because we were being lazy. You know, we all know that. Whether
yeah.
that's
We're all
cutting
guilty of that,
grass
aren't we?
or
Let's be.
yeah,
Yeah,
whether
yeah,
it's cutting grass or whether it's washing pots or whatever, it's blowing air into your tires, whatever. And we all know when, particularly when you're a parent of a child with special educational needs, we know that there are times when we could have perhaps just made a little bit more effort. You know, we
yeah.
have
Oh,
we
yeah,
have been a victim. We've played the victim. And God only knows you deserve to do it sometimes. You've got it crap.
yeah,
You know, weather comes out and everybody's happy. Everybody who is got typically developing, oh, weather's nice, we can go to the park, we can do that. And a lot of some parents are like, Jesus Christ, how are we going to get to the park? How are we going to manage this? How are we going to do
yeah,
that?
yeah.
And it's like
Absolutely.
every
Yeah,
single thing that everybody else is excited about is caveated for you because you don't know what absolute carnage is coming your way because of the potential upheaval that your children might bring by being neurodiverse or not
yeah,
typically
yeah,
developing. So I get it, but what that can do sometimes is, but that means that some parents, particularly in education settings and other areas, they can start to rely too much on things and not take their own responsibilities things. And there's that fine line between are you a parent, are you a carer? You know, is that because your child has got special educational needs, or is that a behavior that could be dealt with? There's these conversations that a lot of professionals are wanting to have. So I see that, and I've always tried to be blessed and cursed by being both seeing both sides of the story. Having sat on the other side of the desk as a teacher, a post 16 teacher, before I had a son, I remember thinking, well, so you do see it from both ends.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
think from my perspective, I've had to, I can't not have honest conversations with people. And sometimes that's with parents. But just cutting to the chase, really, it's like with a lot of send parents, they need they need that support. They need it constantly. And
yes, yes,
and I
absolutely.
think when you're looking at a bit of a bigger picture, because some people are not in a position to do that because of the circumstances. But I think such as yourself and I and others who I'll talk about who are involved with the forum, we're looking at the bigger picture. You kind of can't focus on that individual co-production. it's the kind of you got to break a few eggs to make an omelette. So you're almost going to have to upset a
Yeah,
few people on both sides of the co-productive cycle. You're going to upset some parents and
yeah,
you're going to upset some professionals. But if your long-term aim is to actually, actually improve outcomes for children, then I'll keep going. And
yes,
if it means
absolutely,
that
yeah,
if it means on some level I'm demonized, I can deal with that. Judge me on the work that I do, the work that I do. Judge me on what I say, but don't make lies up about me.
yeah,
Don't
yeah,
demonize. I've got a daughter. I've got a 16-year-old daughter, and stuff
yeah,
gets back to her. Lies. I've got a disabled child who attends a specialist school. I've got a young child that attends a mainstream primary school.
yeah, yeah.
These rumors and these things that spread, you get treated
Very
differently.
hurtful. Yeah, yeah,
You get
very,
treated
very hurtful.
differently. And
I
so
think so I'm going to kind of pull it back. I mean, Frank, that's a very, very frank and open, honest conversation. I think there, but I'm going to kind of bring it back to the forum. Um, and kind of just what I want you to do is kind of just set out your style. What was your vision for the forum? What was you trying to achieve? I mean, we hear a lot about the toxic environment and the check. I know that's down to the fact that you were checking, well, obviously what the local authority were doing, but what was your goal? What was the ultimate aim of the forum you were trying to develop?
my personal goal was to set something up, give 1 year of my life, give a governance structure, create a governance structure for parental voice, and walk away. That was my personal goal, 100%. Um, Sophia, who did it with me, my good friend Sophia, she felt exactly the same. We'd been involved in voice for a long time, and we wanted to do 1 year, set up a governance structure, and then walk away. Next generation of parents are coming through. My son's 14. In less than 4 years, sorry, less than 2 years, he's going to be going into adult services. I needed to be moving into that voice and have someone who were coming through, people coming through who were experiencing the new legislation, the new ways of it. So it was to set up a structure that were impenetrable and it were bigger than any one person. But if you're going to create something that's bigger than any one person, you need a strong leader to create that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and the proof of needing something that's bigger than one person is how one person and a few other parents who were working with me were treated. So the vision was traditionally forums are run on a steering group, 4 to 12 people, and it's a little bit old-fashioned, it's a little bit archaic, but in the first instance, it's a good way to get set up, and that's the way that contact follow it. But the vision was to create what I sort of copyrighted as being an alliance, and that was that we had a shared outlook, which was to create parent voice. But there were already some established groups in the town centre. A lot of
Yeah,
them that had annoyed. I accept that because I was questioning what they were doing, and I was questioning where they were developed from as well. But that's quite
yes, yes,
controversial.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
And basically, so there were some established groups. So I knew in the long term I had to move away. And you had to do that. I was okay with that. But then we had to create new groups because we didn't have an autism specific group. We hadn't got one in
Right.
Barnsley. People say
Okay.
Bernardo, but that's an
Crackers, isn't it? Yeah.
organisation. But what's terrifying about in Barnsley is we ain't got Barnsley Autism Group. What does that, like, how does that
Yeah,
even
yeah,
happen?
absolutely.
It's like, you know, parent group 101, in it. There's an autism group springs up somewhere in Barnsley.
Yeah,
Uh,
what I find interesting on that is some of the research we've kind of done is when they were looking at the rise of the HCPs, they identified straight away autism was kicking in at something like 31, 40%, somewhere in between that 30 to 40%. Yeah. So it kind of feels a little bit intentional to me.